Hi, Professor Rax here, and today we're going to talk about why memorizing formulas make you or may make you worse at math. So, do you memorize formulas? If so, you gotta watch this video. First of all, I don't have the absolute truth. If you have a different opinion than me, feel free to type it in the comments. Memorizing formulas may make you worse at math. If you memorize formulas, don't feel guilty, but do you really understand do you really get what you're putting over there? Like that formula? That's what I say. There is a big difference between deep understanding and memorization in math. You don't need to memorize something in a specific way to understand it. You just need to acquire the knowledge and make it part of you. Also, memorizing doesn't always work. You can memorize something today and forget it the next day, as your mind only remembers what really matters for it. Most mathematicians and physicists don't even memorize all the formulas. They only know what formulas they can use in a specific moment. If they memorize a formula, they understand it first, then get a meaningful learning after, but they get this meaningful learning after years of using it and studying it. I mean, I'm not a mathematician, but this is something that I've noticed, and this is something that I read from the sources that are on the description below. They are my sources. Something that I've noticed about mathematicians and physicists also as a math student is that they don't tell you, hey, memorize this. They only tell you, hey, try to understand this. You don't have to lifeless memorize something. If you want to be good at something, you need to understand it first. Try to get a deep understanding, a deep meaning, a deep learning of it, and then we can to talk about memorizing after. Memorizing is like the last thing to do. If it works for you, okay. But if you wanna be really good at math, maybe memorizing could be the worst way to get math knowledge or to be better at math. You need to have a really deep understanding. Lifeless memorization may make you worse at math, or maybe is making you worse at math, because most of the time your mind will just remember what really matters for you. This is a bad thing about the educational system. They try to make you memorize things like the multiplication table, but do you even use it? If you never done multiplication practice, then your mind will feel that what you are learning is useless. Your mind only learns what you feel is useful and what you depend on it. On what you depend on. Your mind only learns what matters for it. If your mind feel that it doesn't matter for it, then you won't learn that. You won't learn that concept. You won't learn that formula. So first, try to make that knowledge part of you. If you want to try to make that formula part of you, if you want to acquire that knowledge. But if you don't see math useful for survival, we may learn quickly what really matters for our survival. But if you don't see math useful for your survival, or don't see it as something that can improve your life, you will only memorize formulas. Math, we can trick our mind to focus on something that is really useful for our survival. If you feel that math or knowing that math formula is useful for your survival, then hey, maybe you can understand better that formula, or you can acquire that knowledge better. That's what I mean. So learning math takes time, but when you try to have a deep understanding of the formulas that you are learning, you stop becoming a robot and start becoming a highly smart human. When you make really great questions about the formula you are learning and try to understand the basics, like before we get to a formula, we learn the basics. What I mean is that you need to make really great questions about what you are learning. You need to go really deep into what you are learning, or you need to learn first the fundamentals, the basics, before a formula. So if you haven't learned the basics, try to recall the basics first and look on how you can relate what you've learned about the basics. I mean, what you've learned about the basics and how it can relate with what you are learning. I mean, with the formula you are getting with. That's what I mean. Because most of the formulas, I mean, before someone get to a formula, I mean, before we get the first formula of anything, like it could be the force formula, mass times acceleration, we get to a logical, we get through, or the people that got that formula have went through a logical through a logical journey. If you think it better, if you try to think it in a better way, there is a logical journey behind every formula. There is a logical journey. So it is better to try to understand what is the logical journey behind that formula, because every formula has been a logical journey from someone that was burned before you. You know what I mean? That was born before you. I mean, every formula is a logical journey about that someone that was born before you made, and you know what I mean. So if you try to understand the basics or the fundamentals, it is more likely that you understand better what formula you're treating with. So first try to understand the fundamentals and then try to make the great connections, like try to make good connections with what you are learning of math before memorizing. Like don't try to understand what you are learning. That's what I say. Do you think mathematicians and physicists memorize all the formulas? Nah, they seems to understand them pretty well, then remember the formulas they use the most. Then remembering the formulas they use the most. I mean, they don't seem to memorize all the formulas. They don't even tell you, hey, memorize these formulas. Like, don't try to memorize formulas. Don't if your mind doesn't remember through memorization, if it is too hard for you to remember a formula, then don't try it that way. Try another way. Try to understand the basics. Try to get, there could be a way to get to that formula that it doesn't have to be with memorization. That's what I mean. When you know how to navigate through math and science and physics to get to a formula, then you don't become a robot. Like, you don't become a lifeless robot that is memorizing something for the sake of memorizing. You become more like a really smart mathematician, or maybe a really smart physicist. You start to think like someone. Like, you try to please please don't try to understand what the formula that you are like, try to understand that formula before memorizing. Don't lifeless memorize anything, like any formula. Don't lifeless memorize anything. Do you think mathematicians and physicists memorize all the formulas? Nah, they understand them pretty well, then remember the formulas they use the most. So stop trying to memorize something you don't understand. Try to understand something the best you can. We all have different minds and we all can apply a lot of different study techniques. It's not about how the systems want us to learn, but how we can learn through the system. The way we learn and understand things. If you notice an easy way of understanding a formula for you, use it, as they say in engineering. If it works, don't touch it. If you understand a formula in a specific way, better than making a lifeless memorization, that's maybe 10 times better than trying to memorize something that doesn't fit with your learning style. So that's it. Next time you find a formula, try to play with it. Like, try to I don't know, like try to see math and physics like, or formulas like math and physics like a game, like a kid game, like yeah, because it is more like a game. Like you play every mathematician and every, or maybe some most of the mathematicians and physicists, they only play with numbers and letters, and like they don't really, they do math and physics, but it is more like a kid game where you play and play and play with numbers and get to conclusions, and that's it. You know what I mean? Like don't see math as something complicated. See it as a game. You see it as a game, as a logical mathematical game where a lot of things are related. A lot of things you can make connections between formulas. So try to don't like if don't lifeless memorize anything. Don't lifeless memorize any formula, especially. Try to understand first the formula, then memorize if you want it. Memorize it later. That was all the video for today. Professor Axe out.